Greetings and welcome to another episode of JNTV Insight. I'm Crystal Tomlinson, and in today's show we have a wide array of issues to talk about, from disaster preparedness to the care and protection of our children, and an interview with a uniquely talented pencil artist. Stay with us. You're guaranteed to enjoy this program. Welcome back to JNTV Insight. Now we start our discussion with a focus on disaster preparedness. With me right now is the Acting Director of Information and Training at the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management. Very long title. Hi, Miss Nichols.
Hi.
Cheryl Nichols, tell us what ODPEM does. What's the role and mission of the office?
Well, certainly, and it's my pleasure being here with you, of course. As our name suggests, albeit a mouthful, it's the Office for Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management. So on a day-to-day basis, what we're doing is coordinating what we think will be response activities. We're looking at training. We're looking at ensuring that the resources are pre-positioned so that if and when disasters strike, Jamaica is prepared and we can respond from wherever the impact area is.
All right, so we talk about natural disasters. Give me some examples of the types of disasters that ODPEM is geared to prepare us for.
All right, well, first thing, let's just get something out. We talk about natural hazards and man-made hazards, and it's when those materialize and we have disasters.
Okay.
So a Hurricane Gilbert, for argument's sake, would have been a disaster as opposed to just a hurricane. And in terms of what it is that we prepare the nation for, we talk about our hurricanes or floods or earthquakes, which are the core hazards that we are vulnerable to. But then there are some secondary ones that we may have as a result of these. So we could have had a tsunami as a result of an earthquake. We may have a fire as a result of an earthquake. We could have flooding as a result of a hurricane. So there are a number of things that could happen when we have a major disaster. How do we do this? It's quite a bit of activities that we undertake on a day-to-day basis. We talk about information and training, which my portfolio speaks quite a bit about, ensuring that the public is informed and ensure that persons are trained. We do this using quite a number of innovative mechanisms, and I'll speak to that a little more as we get further into the program.
All right, now tell me about the information aspect of it. Do you find that Jamaicans are generally educated about natural hazards and the risks that they put themselves, they make themselves vulnerable to because of where they're located, the things they do or don't do in the home? Do you find that they are aware of these things?
Well, awareness level has increased significantly, and if we were to look at a point from which we started to see the increase, then that would have been with Gilbert. What we saw happening pre-Gilbert and what has happened subsequently, vast difference. So the message is being communicated, persons are taking heed, and they recognize that there is a part that they have to play in ensuring that vulnerability is reduced, to ensure further that as a nation we're not as badly impacted from a disaster as we could have been.
All right, one of the most popular, and I use that term very loosely, popular natural hazards for Jamaica, or that most Jamaicans may be aware of, would be hurricanes. Now, how do you prepare people for the hurricane period? But tell me first when that period is.
Well, we have the traditional hurricane season, which runs from June through to November. But in an effort to ensure that Jamaicans are prepared ahead of the start of the season, we have what is observed as Hurricane Preparedness Month. And that month is observed all month long for May. And what this does, we bring into focus a particular sector, as is the case this year, where we're focusing on education sector. And we seek to ensure that the schools, the institutions that are responsible for housing our children, whether as primary education, secondary, or even early childhood, that they are exposed to the sort of information that will make them ready. So how do we do this? I mean, we have our ongoing sensitization sessions. From time to time, we have our simulation programs. We assist institutions in crafting their disaster plan, and more pertinent to what you're asking, ensuring that the hurricane component is given quite a bit of attention.
Okay, and is Hurricane Awareness Month recognized worldwide or just for Jamaica or the Caribbean?
Well, I can't speak to how worldwide its reach is, but I do know that we took the concept from Cuba, so I'm sure it exists in the Caribbean. And Cuba, as you can imagine, has been affected by hurricanes from time to time, and they have embraced that as an approach to getting their population ready. And having seen the successes that that has brought, we too have been doing so. And we have been observing Hurricane Preparedness Month in Jamaica for a little over 6 years, so it's a fairly new concept. But as the year goes, the momentum builds, and we think of other ways of ensuring that the information is being carried the way we would want it.
Okay, so you're providing information and training for this season for the education institutions. How do you find young persons engaging with this new information, and how do you make it exciting and engaging for them?
Well, we have seen improvement really, because we target schools using a number of creative mechanisms. For argument's sake, among the common products that we use for hurricane preparedness, we talk about our cultural exchange, which is really tasking students with coming up with creative ways of showcasing their understanding of hurricane around a central theme. We also have our culinary competition, which allows our students to come up with original items that could be prepared during or after a disaster that is considered to be nutritious. So in so doing, we get their buy-in. And you spoke about keeping it real. We have tapped into the whole social media network. So we are on Facebook, we are on Twitter, we are on YouTube, and every bit of opportunity that we get, we push the message out there, because we know that our youths, they're not really in for the chalk and talk, they're not in for the stand-up before you, so we make sure that those innovative mechanisms are in place.
I like how you say the chalk and talk. Very, very effective moniker there. Now, tell me about community disaster plans, because I imagine each community needs a specific plan that guides them on how to deal with flooding or hurricanes or tsunamis or whatever it might be. How does ODPEM help to prepare a community disaster plan?
Right, and just before I get there though, I have to also contextualize. For us to get to the point of having a community disaster plan, then we have to have a community disaster risk management group, or what we call our community emergency response team. A product of either of these is that they would have had a plan that outlines their course of action in the event there is a disaster. So while we do have a national disaster plan that speaks to the readiness of the country as a whole, we're mindful that one document would not be all encompassing, and therefore the community's involvement is key. Now, as it is, we have in office close to 100 community disaster risk management plans that have been developed, and this spans the length and breadth of the island. All 14 parishes have some communities for which we have community disaster plans, and it speaks to standard operating procedures.
So at least one community in each parish has a community disaster plan. But for those communities that don't have a plan and want one constructed for them, how do they reach out to ODPEM or to your office?
All right, for each of our parish, we have what is called our parish disaster committee, and communities are encouraged to speak with that mechanism, because that's really their first response, their first point of contact. And once that conversation has been initiated, it indicates that there's a need for us to establish a community disaster group for that particular locale, and with that we would have taken them through the process of doing their community disaster plan. The benefit of such a plan is that it's not a document that ODPEM goes in and do for the community. We really are a facilitator of the process. They are the ones who feed the information. There is indeed a template that we use, of course, for standardization and ensuring that there is a certain level of quality. But in terms of the data that goes into it, it's a community based on their knowledge of the community's history, their knowledge of the community's demography, because all of these would have had to be taken into consideration. What's the age group of the population? Is it a community that has predominantly young people, a lot of elderly? Are there disabled persons? So these are things that would have been part of your community disaster plan, and it is also led by a team. So in as much as there's a national disaster plan and ODPEM is the driver, the community disaster plan also has its driver, and usually these are persons elected by the communities who display a certain level of responsibility and able to carry through with what is contained in their plans.
So it's engagement on various levels for,
Indeed,
for all
it is.
the stakeholders involved.
Indeed.
All right, remind our viewers some of the things that they need to do in preparation for a natural hazard, a checklist if they should have one, numbers that they need to know, that sort of thing.
All right, pertinent to all of this is having your own survival kit. This is something that we encourage Jamaicans to do, and it doesn't really require a lot of money. We simply need to have at the back of our cupboard those non-perishable items, an extra tin or two of corned beef, of mackerel, of sardine, your crackers, so that in the event something happens, and while we are talking about hurricane, the good thing is we see this one coming. There are other hazards that may just knock on our door without any warning. As we look into the hurricane season, you'll want to be acquainted with your emergency shelters. Where are these? How do I gain access? Are there other shelters that we'd want to consider in the event that the shelters that we use are not available for occupancy when there's a disaster situation? And of course, you want to ensure that the family members are acquainted with their roles and responsibility. What is it that the mother will do? What is it that the father will do? And what involvement can our children have? Of course, we understand that helping children to cope in a disaster requires some amount of infusion well ahead of the event happening, and therefore giving them specific tasks is also part of the preparatory phase in getting us to where we want to be.
All right, thank you very much. Very, very important information being shared, courtesy of Miss Cheryl Nichols. She is the Acting Director of Information and Training at the Office of Disaster, Preparedness and Emergency Management. They do as the name suggests that they do. Now we'll be back. We have more for you on Insight.